My sister claimed, "The perfect wedding present would be you vanishing from this family forever, my parent." Can you imagine your own sister, your flesh and blood, looking you dead in the eye and saying the best wedding gift you could give her was to disappear from the family forever? And then your parents just sat there, silently agreeing. Well, I did disappear. But not before I sold their house right out from under them. And what I left in that empty house for them to find. Oh, it absolutely broke them. Every other Sunday, my parents hosted dinner at their hangar home outside Austin. Picture it, a gated fly-in community, private runway, an HOA that acts like its own tiny government. The kind of place where grown men treat a Cessna like it's an extension of their personality. My dad, a retired county public works lifer. My mom used to run a daycare, but once my sister hit middle school, parenting became a single-player game. And that player was never me. I'm Cade, 33. My entire job as an aircraft maintenance compliance manager is making sure no one cuts corners on planes carrying 40 tons of cargo at 500 miles per hour. It's a high-stakes, meticulous world. I took my mom's maiden name at 18. I needed something that was just mine. Remember that feeling? It comes back later. This particular Sunday, I'd driven up after a brutal week, an FAA audit, 2 write-ups on a 767, and a 4-hour conference call with corporate legal. I walked in, grabbed a Dr. Pepper, and sat down at the table where Lennox, my sister, was already holding court. She works in brand partnerships, which means she gets paid to make things look better than they are. And she's terrifyingly good at it. She could reframe any situation, turn herself into the hero, and you into the problem. She'd do it with a smile that made you feel crazy for even noticing. Her fiancé, Kellen, a junior loan officer with a newly minted pilot's license, sat beside her, talking about aviation like he'd landed on a carrier deck instead of a rental Cessna on a grass strip. Nice enough guy on the surface. Absolutely zero depth underneath. I mentioned I'd just been tapped to lead the compliance team for our carrier's new regional hub expansion. 12 aircraft, a brand new facility, full regulatory approval. It was the biggest thing I'd worked on in my career, something I was genuinely proud of. Dad grunted. Mom said, "That's nice, honey," in the same tone you'd use if someone told you they'd found a quarter in the couch. Then Lennox set down her fork. Her voice was calm, rehearsed, chillingly even. "You know what would make my wedding absolutely perfect," she said, looking straight at me. "If you just disappeared from this family forever, that's the only gift I want from you, Cade." I waited for the correction. The Lennox, that's enough. The uncomfortable F. Something. But Dad just reached for his sweet tea. Mom kept cutting her brisket. Neither looked up. Neither said a word. "I'm dead serious," Lennox continued, her voice still unnervingly steady. "You make everything weird. You show up, talk about work nobody cares about. You suck the energy out of every room and then act confused when nobody's impressed. Just go." "Please, Lennox," I started. But Mom's hand came up, stopping me. "Your sister is getting married, Cade.
Could you not make this about you?"
Just once. I wasn't making it about me. I'd said maybe 12 words about work before Lennox detonated. "Always the job," Dad muttered, his eyes on his plate. "Never family, never what matters." I looked at the three of them. Mom had already turned back to Lennox. Dad was engrossed in his brisket. Kellen was examining his fingernails like they contained state secrets. It was as if I was already gone. I stood up. No raised voice, no slammed doors. Just a quiet, numb understanding. "Appreciate the clarity," I said. I picked my jacket off the chair, walked to the front door, and left. Nobody followed. Nobody called out. The screen door closed behind me, and the conversation inside resumed before I even reached my truck. Through the window, I could see Lennox already pulling something up on her phone, Mom leaning over her shoulder, both of them bathed in the warm kitchen light, like I'd been edited out of the frame. The drive back to San Antonio took 53 minutes. I merged onto the highway, both hands on the wheel, and my brain went quiet. It wasn't anger. Anger is reactive. This was something older, deeper. A chilling clarity had descended. The last piece of evidence had just landed on a pile that had been growing for decades. I spent those 53 minutes running calculations. Not emotional calculations. Actual numbers. Because here's the thing Lennox didn't know, and my parents had apparently forgotten. When I turned 21, Dad added both me and Lennox to the deed on that hangar home. Tenants in common, each owning 25%. Dad had called it estate planning. A smart move for inheritance. A really dumb move when one of your kids decides to cash out. The property, a 2,800 square foot hangar home with an attached T-hangar, direct taxiway access, and a lot on the airpark's premium row, had been appraised for $785,000 just 18 months prior. My 25% was worth $196,250. They wanted me gone?
Fine.
But gone has a price tag. I gave myself 2 weeks before making any move. Not to calm down, I was already cold. It was to build a case file. Deed records from the county clerk, property tax history, the HOA covenant package, all 63 pages of it, including the transfer review process that kicked in whenever ownership changed hands. I even pulled up Lennox's social media. Not to stalk, but to catalog. She'd been posting wedding details for months. The venue, a converted barn estate outside Dripping Springs, capacity for 220 guests. She'd even posted the deposit receipt, $8,500 non-refundable, like it was a flex. The total wedding budget looked like $52,000, mostly funded by Mom and Dad's savings. The same savings that would need to cover buying out my share of the property if they wanted to keep their house. Then I found him, a real estate litigation attorney out of Austin, recommended by a colleague. Mid-50s, voice like gravel, his office decorated with framed photos of his dogs instead of diplomas. I liked him immediately. He confirmed what I already suspected. As a co-owner, I could petition for a partition sale under Texas Property Code Chapter 23. If they couldn't buy me out at fair market value, the court would order a sale. It wouldn't be fast, 4 to 6 months minimum, but it was legally bulletproof. The HOA transfer process would add friction, not a barrier. I retained him that afternoon. In that 2-week window, I attended 2 family events. Not because I wanted to, but because people who are comfortable mistreating you will keep doing it on camera if they don't think anyone's watching the tape. The first was a wedding planning brunch at my parents'. Lennox had invited 6 of her friends, plus Kellen's mother. I showed up with a gas station coffee, because I knew there'd be nothing for me. I was right. She'd set the table for exactly the number of guests, -1. No chair, no place setting. I grabbed a folding chair from the garage, wedged it into a corner where it half-blocked the kitchen doorway, and sat there for 90 minutes. She walked everyone through the wedding timeline, the seating chart, I wasn't on it, and the bridal party roles, I wasn't in the bridal party. She'd put me at a table in the back with Kellen's college roommates. Nobody commented. Mom beamed through the whole thing, like her daughter had just cured cancer. The second event was worse. Dad hosted a Saturday cookout for the airpark neighbors. Burgers, brisket, the works. The HOA board president was there, along with maybe 15 other residents. Standard airpark culture. Everyone's an expert, everyone has opinions, and the runway is the only thing they actually agree matters. Lennox used the opportunity to corner me near the hangar while Dad was flipping patties and entertaining the board president with a story about a drainage culvert project from 1997 that nobody asked to hear. "I need you to transfer your share of the house to me and Kellen," she said, keeping her voice low enough that nearby conversations covered it. "Dad said he'd talk to you about it, but since he hasn't, I'm asking directly." "Transfer it for what?" I asked. "For the family. Kellen and I are going to move in eventually. We need the ownership clean." Clean, meaning my name off the deed. "It's not like you use the hangar. You don't even fly." "Lennox, I own 25% of a property worth close to $800,000. You're asking me to hand over $200,000 because it's convenient for your timeline." Her eyes went flat. That was the real Lennox. The one behind the Instagram filters and the brunch invitations. Cold, calculating, used to getting what she wanted because she knew exactly who to push and how hard. "You're being difficult," she said. "As usual." "I'm being accurate. I replied. As usual. She walked away. 30 minutes later, Mom pulled me aside near the runway fence. She told me I was creating tension and that I should think about what's best for the family. I told her I was thinking about exactly that. And then I left. That night, I emailed my attorney. Green light. Draft the buyout offer. Let's start the clock. The clock started. They just didn't hear it ticking yet. Lennox threw her engagement party at the Air Park's community pavilion. She'd gotten an event permit, roped in a caterer, strung up Edison lights, hired a photographer. Every angle was a photo op. Every moment was a potential Instagram story. About 80 people showed up. A King Air taxied past during the speeches, which Lennox handled by pausing dramatically and saying, "Even the planes are celebrating." It got a laugh from everyone except the pilot. One of Dad's brothers, who never called me once, drove down from Dallas, ready to opine on everything. I came in khakis and a button-down. Understated. I wasn't there to perform. I was there to close a chapter. The photographer arranged a family shot near the pavilion's stone wall. Mom and Dad center, Lennox and Kellen to their right. Me on the far left, half out of frame. The photographer actually asked me to scoot in, but Lennox interjected, "He's fine where he is." Click. Last family photo. They didn't know it yet. After the photo, I found Lennox near the dessert table, laughing with two friends about some influencer partnership. "Got a minute?" I asked. She excused herself with an eye roll. We walked toward the edge of the pavilion, away from the crowd. The runway stretched out behind us, empty in the evening light. "I've been thinking about what you said at dinner," I told her, "about disappearing." I watched her face change, interested, almost hopeful. "You were right. I'm going to do exactly that." "Good," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Honestly, Cade, it's better for everyone. You've always been." But I cut in. "I'm taking what's mine on the way out." That hope died fast. "What does that mean?" "You'll find out this week." I walked back to the party, stayed another 40 minutes, shook Kellen's hand, said goodnight to the HOA president who was complaining about someone's unapproved hangar paint job. Last time I'd ever shake that man's hand. Last time I'd ever say goodnight to any of them. Monday morning, my attorney sent the certified letter to my parents' address. Return receipt requested. Formal buyout offer. $196,250 for my 25% share. 60-day response window. If they couldn't or wouldn't buy me out, I'd file for petition under Texas Property Code Chapter 23. The letter arrived Wednesday. I know because the return receipt came back with Dad's signature, written so hard the pen almost tore through the card. Dad called 14 times between Wednesday evening and Thursday morning. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages escalated from confused, to angry, to threatening. The last one was just heavy breathing and, "You've lost your mind, son." Mom texted, "This is cruel, and you know it. Call me." Lennox went nuclear within hours. She created a group chat called Family Crisis with every relative, family friend, and Air Park neighbor she had a number for. Her version, Cade is trying to force the sale of our parents' home out of jealousy over my wedding. He's always been resentful. He's trying to destroy our family because he can't stand not being the center of attention. She backed it up with screenshots, cropped, of course. A text where I'd written, "I'm done trying to explain my legal rights to people who don't care." Got trimmed to just, "I'm done." The context made it dismissive, not exhausted. Another, "The offer is fair and you know it," was cropped to "you know it." 3 words that, stripped of context, sounded threatening.
She didn't need to lie.
She just needed scissors. Then came the social quarantine. She started telling people, not loudly, just quietly in conversation, that she was genuinely worried about Cade's stability, and that for everyone's safety, it was better not to engage. Not an accusation, a concern. The kind of thing that makes people cut you off and feel good about it. 3 neighbors who'd been friendly with me for years stopped returning texts within a week. She left out, naturally, the part where she asked me to permanently disappear from the family. She left out the decades of being treated like a line item nobody budgeted for. She left out the folding chair at the brunch and the seating chart that put me with strangers at her wedding. Dad's brother called 9 times in one day. I answered the ninth because I was curious what a man who hadn't spoken to me since 2019 had to say about my life decisions. "You're tearing this family apart," he said, his voice thick with righteous anger. "When's my birthday?"
I asked.
Silence. "It's March 14th. You've never once called. Not on that day, not on any day. You're not calling because you care about me. You're calling because Lennox told you to. We're done here." I hung up. One of my aunts sent a 4-paragraph email calling me the most selfish person to carry our family name. This from a woman who once refused to lend Mom her KitchenAid mixer for Thanksgiving because she didn't trust other people's outlets. One of my cousins texted me a Bible verse about honoring thy father and mother. I texted back Colossians 3 verse 21. "Fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged." He left me unread. The funniest part was the sudden surge of interest in my existence. These people had my number all along. Nobody used it for birthdays, holidays, or anything that actually mattered. But threaten a house sale, and suddenly everyone's a family counselor. Funny how that works. Nobody's number one until they're the one with leverage. The airpark drama was a separate front. Lennox convinced 2 board members I was unstable and might do something reckless with the property. Classic concern trolling. The HOA president called me directly. "I've received some communications from your sister regarding the property on Taxiway Charlie. I want to make sure we're all on the same page about community standards." "I'm exercising a legal right as a co-owner," I stated, my voice even. "My attorney has filed proper notice. If the board has specific concerns about the transfer process, they can put them in writing and send them to my lawyer." That shut it down. The president was a retired airline captain who respected chain of command communication. He didn't want legal heat. But Lennox wasn't done. She filed a complaint with the HOA alleging I'd violated the property maintenance covenant by failing to contribute to upkeep costs. Complete nonsense. Property taxes and HOA dues were paid through a shared account Dad managed, and my 25% had been auto-drafted from my bank for years. I had every receipt, 12 years of them. My attorney sent the HOA a 4-page response with documentation attached.
Complaint dismissed in a week.
Then the board tried something creative. The president sent a notice of a proposed special assessment for runway resurfacing for $1,200 per property, due within 60 days. My attorney requested the HOA's financial records under Texas Property Code 209 and found the runway fund was already fully funded. He sent a letter pointing out that a targeted assessment without a membership-wide vote violated the HOA's bylaws and that selective enforcement against properties under court-ordered sale constituted interference. The assessment disappeared from the next agenda without explanation. Then came the gate access issue. Lennox somehow convinced the airpark security company to deactivate my gate code, claiming I was no longer a resident. I drove up one Saturday to check on the property, my legal right as a co-owner, and the gate wouldn't open. I had to call my attorney from the car. He called the HOA management company. My access was restored within 2 hours, along with a formal warning to whoever had authorized the deactivation. Meanwhile, the 60-day buyout window was ticking. Dad's attorney, a general practice guy who mostly handled fender benders, sent my lawyer a letter arguing the buyout price was inflated and that I should accept $120,000 in the interest of family harmony. My attorney's response was 3 sentences. The appraisal was conducted by a licensed independent appraiser. The offer stands at fair market value. If your clients cannot meet the buyout, we will file for petition. 2 weeks of silence. I used the time productively, filing every document my lawyer needed, building a timeline of ownership contributions going back to when my name was added to the deed. The kind of meticulous, boring work that wins court cases. Day 58. Dad called my attorney directly. "Tell him we'll pay. We just need more time." 6 months. My lawyer relayed it. I thought about it for exactly 1 evening. "No extension," I told him. "They've had the deed for 12 years. They had 60 days notice. File the petition." The petition for petition sale was filed on a Tuesday in Travis County District Court. Filing fees, service costs, billable hours, it was adding up, but the math still worked. Even after legal fees, commissions, and closing costs, my cut would clear $170,000 minimum. Combined with my savings, that was a new start. The court assigned a commissioner to evaluate whether the property could be physically divided. You can't split a hangar home in half, and scheduled a hearing for 8 weeks out. Lennox's wedding was in 5 months. The hearing got pushed back 3 weeks. Commissioner had a scheduling conflict. Then the court docket was packed and bumped us twice. Dad's attorney filed a motion to delay, arguing undue hardship. The judge gave them 2 extra weeks to present financial alternatives. They presented nothing. Just a letter from Dad, saying the house had sentimental value and that selling it would destroy the family. The judge ordered the sale. I exhaled for the first time in weeks. The system worked. The documentation held. Now came the hard part, actually getting the thing sold with Lennox doing everything short of setting it on fire. My attorney recommended a realtor who specialized in airpark properties. She'd sold 11 hangar homes in 3 years and understood the HOA transfer process inside out. Lennox tried to torpedo the listing from day one. First, she called the realtor directly, claiming I didn't have authority to list the property. The realtor asked for the court order. I provided it.
Done.
Then Lennox posted in the Airparks Residents Facebook group, a move that backfired spectacularly. She framed the sale as a hostile act by a disgruntled family member and asked neighbors to discourage outside buyers. 2 residents screenshotted the post and sent it to the realtor, who forwarded it to my attorney, who added it to our file as evidence of interference with a court-ordered sale. The HOA president called an emergency board meeting to address community concerns about the listing. I attended. Lennox was there. Mom was there. Dad refused to come. The boardroom was a converted office in the airpark's main hangar building, fluorescent lights, folding tables, stale coffee. 8 board members sat behind a long table, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. About 20 residents in the gallery, some genuinely concerned, most just there for the drama. This one had attracted a crowd. The president opened with a statement about property rights and community standards. Then he turned to Lennox. You've raised concerns about this sale. Can you specify what covenant violations you're alleging? Lennox had prepared. She stood up with a folder, printed emails, screenshots of texts between her and me, selectively edited, of course, a character reference from her agency boss describing her as a stabilizing presence in her family, framing the sale as retaliatory conduct. Professional letterhead, pure spin. I let her finish. Then I stood up, opened my own folder, and placed 4 documents on the table. A deed copy showing my legal ownership, the court order mandating the sale, 12 years of HOA dues payment receipts from my bank account, and the HOA's own covenant, Section 14.3, which states, no board action shall impede or delay a court-ordered property transfer. I'm not asking the board's permission, I said, my voice cutting through the suddenly tense air. I'm informing the board that this sale is proceeding under court order. If anyone interferes, they're obstructing a judicial mandate. My attorney is available to discuss that further. The president looked at Lennox, looked at me, looked at the court order. The board has no grounds to intervene, he said, clearly defeated. The transfer review process will proceed normally once a buyer is identified. Next agenda item. He started to move on like it was settled. Lennox couldn't stand that. You can't just... This isn't about covenants. He's not family. He's an inconvenience we tolerated. And now he's leveraging a piece of paper to... The room went dead quiet. A guy in the back stopped chewing. 20 people just watched her say the thing she was supposed to keep inside. The president stared at her. 2 board members exchanged a look. A woman in the 3rd row put her hand over her mouth. Lennox heard it. Heard the silence. Her mouth closed. She sat down without another word. I didn't react. Didn't need to. She just said out loud what my whole family had been doing quietly for 19 years. And she said it in front of witnesses. Every tool in her kit, and she blew it with her own mouth. The realtor listed the property the following Monday. Professional photos, aerial drone shots of the runway access, a 3D virtual tour. She priced it at $779,000 because airpark buyers negotiate like it's a sport, and she wanted urgency without looking desperate. Before the first showing, the realtor needed me on site. I pulled up to the gatehouse, and the guard, a new kid, maybe 22, told me he'd been instructed not to let me through. Wouldn't say by whom. I didn't raise my voice. I parked in the visitor lot, called the HOA property manager, then my attorney, then sat in my truck and waited 45 minutes. The guard kept glancing over, like he expected a scene. I was just reading an airworthiness directive on my phone. My lawyer's call resolved it. The guard waved me through, looking relieved. I nodded at him on the way past. No hard feelings. He was just the tool someone else picked up. The first showing was that Thursday. Lennox showed up uninvited, parked her car across the driveway, and told a prospective buyer, a retired airline captain from Houston, that the house had foundation issues and the HOA was under investigation. The realtor documented everything and called my attorney. He filed for a temporary restraining order and injunction blocking Lennox from contacting buyers or interfering with showings, granted within a week. Lennox framed it to her group chat as, Cade got a restraining order against his own sister, which technically wasn't wrong, but it left out the part where she'd been committing tortious interference with a court-ordered sale. Context is for people who want the truth. Lennox just wanted a story she could spin. The second showing went smooth. The third one almost didn't. The buyer was a married couple. He loved the property. She was ready to write a check. Then the wife got a DM on Instagram from an account she didn't recognize. Lennox had found her through the showing schedule and sent a message about how the property was the center of an active family dispute and that purchasing it would make them complicit in displacing elderly parents. The wife panicked, called the realtor at 9 p.m. The realtor spent 40 minutes walking her through the court order. The couple stayed in, but it was close. My attorney added the screenshots to the interference file. The realtor told me later that if they'd backed out, the court could have ordered another listing cycle and dragged this into Lennox's wedding month. By the end of the month, we had 2 offers. One at asking price, one at $760,000. The realtor recommended the full price offer, a couple relocating from Colorado. He was an aerospace engineer. She ran a remote consulting business. They had a Cirrus SR-22 and wanted taxiway access. They passed the HOA transfer review in 19 days. Clean background. Paid the $2,500 fee without complaint. No objections from residents. Closing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Then the title company found an old mechanic's lien from a contractor who'd done hangar door work 8 years ago. Dad had paid the guy in cash and never got a lien release filed. Nobody's fault, just boring paperwork friction. It took 11 days to track down the contractor, get a signed release, and record it with the county. 11 days of Lennox probably hoping the whole thing would collapse on a technicality. Closing happened on a Thursday afternoon in late October at a title company in Austin. Separate signing at my attorney's office that morning. No need to see my parents. The title company handled coordination. After fees, commissions, and the mortgage payoff on what Dad still owed, net proceeds came out to approximately $168,000 per share. Less than the raw quarter because of Dad's mortgage balance and closing costs. Still life-changing money for me. Devastating math for them. Here's what the numbers did to Lennox's wedding. The $52,000 budget was funded primarily from Mom and Dad's savings. Those savings were now needed to secure housing. They ended up renting a 3-bedroom outside Pflugerville. No runway, no hangar, no airpark address. The deposits Lennox had already put down, venue, caterer, florist, photographer, were mostly non-refundable. She scrambled to cancel what she could and lost about $11,000 in deposits total. The dream wedding evaporated. 200 guests became 50. The converted barn estate became Kellen's parents' backyard. The designer dress became something off a rack at a bridal outlet. I learned most of this through the realtor, who heard it through the airpark grapevine. I didn't go looking for updates. They just arrived. 2 days after closing, I drove to the hangar home one last time. The new owners weren't moving in until the following week. The house was empty, cleaned out, echoing. I walked through every room like I was doing a final walkthrough before signing off. The kitchen, where I'd been ignored. The living room, where family photos featured Lennox prominently and me as background noise. The hangar bay, where Kellen parked a rental plane twice, acting like he owned the place. On the kitchen counter, I placed a black 3-ring binder. Heavy duty, the kind you'd use for an FAA audit file. Lennox ran on optics. I ran on receipts. The front cover had a single label, printed clean, exit invoice, prepared by Cade. The first page was formatted like an FAA noncompliance finding because I'm petty in a professional way. Finding * requested permanent removal of family member. Root cause * explicit directive from Lennox, enabled by both parents. Corrective action * exit plan executed. Assets liquidated per court order. Status * closed. Behind it were 6 tab sections, deed and appraisal records. The buyout offer they refused, and the lowball counter I rejected. Court filings, including the TRO. The full HOA interference log with every timestamp. And a tab I called the receipts. 23 entries spanning 19 years. Each one dated. Each one factual. No editorializing. Just a ledger of every time I'd been sidelined, excluded, or erased. Documented the same way I document a recurring maintenance deficiency on a 767. The last page was 3 centered lines under the words, "You asked for this." Cause * the greatest gift is if you disappear from our family forever. Effect * partition sale, $779,000. Property liquidated. Wedding budget eliminated. Status * gift delivered. Beside the binder, I placed an envelope containing a handwritten letter. Edited down the way I edit audit reports. Cut everything that isn't load-bearing. * you told me to disappear. I did. You refused the buyout, so the house sold. You funded a wedding instead of honoring a legal obligation, so the wedding collapsed. Every consequence in this binder goes back to a decision you made, not me. Don't look for me. Don't call. Don't send relatives. This is what forever looks like. Cade. * I closed the front door, dropped my key into the lockbox the realtor had left for the new owners, and walked to my truck. The sun was going down over the runway. A Cessna 150 was doing touch and goes. Somebody's kid was riding a bike along the taxiway edge. Normal airpark evening. Normal life going on while a family blew apart, and nobody outside these gates would ever know. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. I drove south toward San Antonio. I'd already submitted my transfer request to the carrier's compliance office in Raleigh, North Carolina, weeks earlier. Timed so the approval came through right around closing. Different state, different life. Raleigh was flat and green, and didn't remind me of anything. I rented a place near the airport. 15-minute commute. Started work the second week of November. New team, new facility, new aircraft fleet to audit. Nobody knew my family. Nobody asked why I transferred. The kind of fresh start that doesn't feel dramatic. Just quiet. Just mine. I changed my phone number, closed old email accounts, deactivated every social media profile, updated my mailing address to P.O. Box. If anyone tried to track me from San Antonio to Raleigh, they'd hit a wall. That was the point. The work kept me busy through the holidays. Thanksgiving was takeout Thai food and a football game. Christmas was a long run and a steak I cooked myself. New Year's was nothing. I don't mean that sadly. I mean I did nothing and it was exactly what I needed. January brought information I didn't ask for. A former airpark neighbor, a guy I'd been friendly with, emailed my work address, the only contact he still had. The binder had been found by the new owners during their move-in walkthrough. They'd called the realtor, thinking it was leftover closing paperwork. "There's a binder on the counter," the wife had said. "Looks like it belongs to the previous family." The realtor called my parents. Dad drove over and picked it up. According to my former neighbor, Dad sat in his truck in the new owner's driveway for 45 minutes before driving away. Just sat there, engine running, reading presumably, or trying to figure out how a kid he'd treated like background noise for 19 years had built a 60-page case file documenting exactly how invisible they'd made him. Lennox married Kellen in mid-December. Backyard ceremony at his parents' house in Cedar Park. About 50 people. The reception was potluck. Lennox posted a single photo with a caption, "Not what we planned, but grateful for everyone who showed up when it mattered." Nobody mentioned me. I'd been erased from the narrative completely, which was exactly what she'd asked for. Mom and Dad were renting in Pflugerville. No runway, no hangar, no air park address. Dad's truck sat in a regular driveway next to a regular mailbox on a regular street. For a man who'd spent 20 years as the guy on Taxiway Charlie, the loss of that identity hit harder than the money. Lennox, per my former neighbor, was not doing great. The wedding she'd dreamed about for years had been downgraded to a potluck. The hangar home she'd planned to eventually inherit was owned by strangers. Her social media had gone quiet. Kellen's loan officer salary wasn't enough to maintain the lifestyle she'd built her brand around. I didn't feel satisfaction reading that email. Didn't feel guilty either. Just nothing. The kind of nothing you feel when you finally stop checking a bank account that never had anything in it. I emailed him back. Appreciate the update. I'm good out here. Take care. And I meant it. Every word. February, March, April. I settled into Raleigh's rhythm. Joined a running group at Umstead State Park on Saturdays. Got pulled into a side project auditing maintenance records for fleet acquisition. My supervisor, a former Navy mechanic, told me my documentation standards were annoyingly thorough, and then promoted me to lead the new fleet's compliance integration. Spring turned warm early in North Carolina. Azaleas everywhere. I was at work on a Monday in April when my office phone rang. Front desk. "There's a woman here asking, says she's family." My chest tightened for 1 second. Then it passed. "Tell her I'm unavailable. Let security know I'm not expecting visitors." She left after 20 minutes. I didn't ask what she looked like. But Lennox had tracked me to Raleigh, probably through my carrier's website, which listed office locations. And she wasn't the type to accept a closed door. She wanted an audience. She always wanted an audience. The opportunity came 3 weeks later, and it came because of my former neighbor. He'd mentioned in a follow-up email that the airpark was hosting its annual spring fly-in, aircraft displays, vendor booths, pancake breakfast, community barbecue, open to current and former residents. I hadn't planned to go, but my carrier needed someone to attend an EAA regional safety seminar being held that same weekend at a field outside San Marcos. I volunteered. Professional reason, legitimate travel. And when I was done Saturday afternoon, I drove the 40 minutes to the airpark. Not for the fly-in itself, but because my former neighbor had offered to give me a box of tools I'd left in his garage 2 years ago. I pulled through the gate. My old code had long been deactivated, but he cleared me as a guest. I parked near the community pavilion. Same Edison lights from Lennox's engagement party now strung between vendor booths. Same stone wall. The fly-in was winding down. Maybe 60 people still milling around. A few experimentals and a restored staggerwing sat on the ramp, wings glinting in the late afternoon sun. The HOA president was holding court near the pancake station, talking to someone about transponder regulations with the intensity of a man who truly believed this was the most important conversation happening anywhere on Earth. I found my former neighbor at his hangar, grabbed the tools, and was loading them into my truck when I heard her voice behind me. "Are you kidding me right now?" Lennox, standing on the taxiway in a sundress and designer sunglasses, pushed up on her head. Arms crossed, jaw set. Kellen was 10 feet behind her, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else on Earth. I closed the tailgate, turned around, said nothing. "You have the nerve to show up here?" Her voice carried. A few heads turned near the pavilion. "She wanted that. After what you did to this family? After you ruined my wedding?" I leaned against the truck bed. "Let her go." That binder was psychotic, Cade. Keeping a list of every time you felt slighted. "You need help. Seriously." A few more people had drifted closer. The HOA president set his plate down. "You done?" I asked. "No, I'm not done. You owe Mom and Dad an apology. You owe me an apology. You took everything from us because you couldn't handle not being the favorite. I pushed off the truck, stood straight. Didn't raise my voice.
Didn't need to.
Lennox, you asked me to disappear forever. Those were your exact words. Mom and Dad sat there and agreed. I did what you asked. The house sold because you refused a fair buyout. The wedding collapsed because Mom and Dad chose to fund your party instead of honoring a legal obligation. Every single thing that happened to you goes back to a choice you made, not me. She opened her mouth. I kept going. I'm not apologizing. I'm not coming back. And I'm not arguing about this in a parking lot at a fly-in. You got what you wanted. So did I. I walked to the driver's side of my truck. You're going to die alone, she called after me. Not a threat.
A wish.
The kind of thing people say when they've got nothing left, and they know it. I opened the door, looked back at her one last time. At Kellen, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched, looking like a guy who realized way too late what he married into. At the hangar home down taxiway Charlie that now had a different family's name on the mailbox. At the HOA president, watching silently from the pavilion, his plate of pancakes going cold. Maybe, I said. But you already practiced disappearing me. You're just mad it worked. I got in the truck, started the engine, and pulled out through the gate. Didn't look in the rear-view mirror. The gate closed behind me with a clank that sounded exactly like what it was, a lock sliding into place. Narrator looks directly at the camera, a thoughtful, perhaps a little weary, but ultimately resolute expression. It's hard to cut ties, isn't it? Especially when it's family. But sometimes, when you're pushed to the absolute breaking point, there's no other choice. So, I have to ask you, what would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose yourself over a family that just couldn't see you? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.